Lori Brand. She's an author. She's much more than that. Fascinating background Lori has. I mean, really, really level-headed and just kind of matter of fact, really great conversation with Lori. She wrote this really, really great book about body shaming and the body image war. And I opened up the first question with how did Lizzo and Adele influence you writing this book? She goes on about why that reason is. When she was young, she's a dancer. Her dance instructor actually had to wire her mouth shut to lose weight and how that impacted her. But it's a great conversation about not only about the subject of body shaming and women's image, but her book Bodies to Die For was just released, talks about her process. I'm always fascinated with fiction writers and how they have these two characters. She has two characters, Ashley and Gemma, and they go in a direction that she wasn't planning. It's just fascinating to me. What is that like as you're writing? She had another character that she ended up pulling out because it wasn't as interesting. It's just, fiction is just so fascinating to me. But a great conversation with Lori, really captivating. And it's great to see what she has coming out next. Thanks for listening. Lori Brand, I'm very, very excited to talk to you. Thanks for your time today. How did Lizzo and Adele inspire you to write this book?
Okay, so we got to go all the way back to January 2020. So in January 2020, Jillian Michaels was interviewed on BuzzFeed News, and she was asked what she thought of about Lizzo as a body positive role model. And Jillian had said something to the effect of, why are we celebrating her body? Why aren't we celebrating her music? Because it isn't going to be awesome if she gets diabetes. And I don't know if you remember, but social media just blew up, right? It just completely blew up. People were calling for Jillian's head. There was a big group that said, that Jillian was fat shaming. And then there was another group that said, we have to quit normalizing obesity. And it was these warring sides that really got me, as how much hatred was in the comments and things on Instagram. And I was still kind of reeling from that when a few months later, Adele had posted a picture of herself to Instagram, and it was just a picture of herself. It was her birthday. She just posted a picture of herself, and all these people came out of the woodwork and said, her comments just filled up immediately. There are people that said that they were disappointed, right? That they had looked up to her as a body positive role model. And then other people came out and said, it's great that Adele's getting healthy. This is really good for her. And there were all these people were like scrutinizing her body, and as if she owed other people her body. And a while later, Adele came out with a statement about it, and she said that she had been going through a dark period, and that she had turned to exercise to help her deal with it. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But Adele shouldn't have to come out with a statement, right? A woman ought to be able to post a picture of herself to Instagram without having the entire world without having the whole world critique it. And it really just got me thinking how you know I've been like a fitness competitor. I've been in all sorts of areas of this, right? I've done all sorts of things in the fitness world, including bodybuilding. And there's so much good about fitness, right? Healthy body, healthy mind. I love fitness. I love exercise, and there's so much good about it. But it can have like a dark side. It can have an
Sure.
ugly underbelly, which I think a lot of people were already aware of. But what we were starting to also see was that the healthy at any size movement, or the fat activists, if you will, it's a certain segment of that group. But we were starting to see almost an ugly underbelly of that side, and there's actually some good to the healthy at any size movement, or to to the idea that you shouldn't have to be a certain size to wear a swimsuit to the beach, or you shouldn't have to say, be uncomfortable to go to the gym because you're not the size that the world expects you to be. You're not trying to please other people on what your body looks like. So there's a lot of good to that. But we were with people starting to pick apart Adele's body as if she owed them her body. We were seeing both these ugly, ugly sides of both sides. And I thought to myself, like, what if this body war, if you will, moved offline? Like
Mm.
what might happen? And hence my book was originally called Body Wars, but my publisher has renamed it to Bodies to Die For. But my book was born. Yeah,
And the other big, I'm gonna say driver, what I've
yeah,
heard you say, was that
yeah.
when you're young, your dance teacher got her mouth wired shut.
Yes, she got her jaw wired shut. It left a huge. So this has been on my radar since I was about 10 years old. Just
Yeah.
women's bodies. I grew up in a really normal house. I had actually really great parents. So really diet really wasn't so much on my radar. I was actually, if anything, I was kind of a slip of a kid. But I remember being my mom was driving me to dance when I was in about fourth grade. And she had just said, it's only like, we weren't that far away from dance. It was maybe like a 5-minute drive. And we were getting close. And she said, oh, Jill was Barb's assistant. She's going to be teaching dance for the next few months. Barb will still be there. Don't worry. But she'll be off on the side with a notebook, but Jill will teach. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, well, why? Right. And my mom said, well, Barb had her jaw wired shut. And I was just gobsmacked. I was like, what? Why? Like, what happened? I thought maybe she was in a car accident or something horrible happened. And my mom said that she did it intentionally because she wanted to lose some weight. And I just couldn't get over that. And I was asking my mom all these questions, but then we were pulling up to the curb, and I had to go to the dance. And my mom was like, now don't go in there asking all sorts of questions. You're going to make her uncomfortable. You're going to make everybody uncomfortable. Just go in there and get to dance. Right. And so I went there and, sure enough, Barb's off in the corner with a notebook and and all these other moms are dropping their daughters off too. And nobody's freaking out.
Mm.
And this is I think that is the bigger thing about it was that I was reeling, right? And nobody else was freaked out. Like this was just business as usual. And this went on then over the next several months. I watched Barb get smaller and smaller and smaller, periodically like suck a protein shake through a straw, with her
Mm.
cheekbones popping out. And then I think potentially one of the reasons why it sticks in my mind also so much is that after a few months of this, I had done something to like maybe warrant her attention. I was probably misbehaving. I don't remember, but she's a really nice lady, but she pointed at me and she, motioned with her finger for me to come over. And so, yeah, I went over there, tap, tap, tap in my little tap shoes.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what she said to me, but she would have talked to me with her, like this, because her jaw was wired shut. But as she was talking, I realized that like there weren't any other moms around, right? There weren't any other kids around. Like nobody could rat me out, right? And so I said when she was done, I said, did you really have your jaw wired shut? And she shook her head, yeah. And I said, is it possible to see the wires? And she shook her head, yeah. I said, can you show me? And so she hooked her pointer finger in the side of her mouth and she pulled her lips back. And you could see these silver wires zigzagging up and down between her upper and lower jaw, like sharp, jagged teeth. And it left such an impact on me. How important was it to be thin? It was that important. And so
Wow.
ever since it's just been on my radar, right? And I had friends in high school who had some pretty significant eating. I was a gymnast who had some pretty significant eating disorders. One was actually two were hospitalized for different reasons for it. But I just I in college I got a side gig as a stripper. I've just been very much in this world of women being incredibly scrutinizing their bodies and scrutinizing each other's bodies. And it's just been on my radar when that thing with Jillian and Adele happened. I just finally thought, you know what? At that point I'd been writing for fitness magazines for a while. And I remember thinking like, is nobody who's sane going to speak? Like somebody needs to say something. And then,
Mm.
like this little voice inside of me said like, why don't you? Right. And so I got writing and my book came about. Yeah.
Lori, somewhere in there, you kind of mentions you kind of were a stripper for a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to ask
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what was that like?
It was actually a very fun job. So, when I was in college, summer after my freshman year, I was working in a nightclub and as a waitress, and all of our prettiest girls kept quitting to go work at Solid Gold, which was the new strip club in town. And I was probably pretty easily swayed by like the hot girls, right? They left, and then they would come back sometimes like on a Friday or Saturday night with like their hot friends to drink while like we were like while I was working, and they'd tell me how much fun they were having and how much money they were making, and they'd say you should come. And actually they probably didn't come on a Friday or Saturday because those would have been really good nights. They probably came on like a Wednesday or something, but they
Right,
were like,
right.
you should come work, you should come there. And so I did, right? I left and I first got a job as a cocktail waitress at Solid Gold. And then you're there the same amount of time as the dancers are there, right? But the dancers are making a lot more money. And then the other thing that's really great about being a dancer is that you've got free reign. Like you could just walk away. If you don't like a table, you don't ever have to talk to them again. You just walk away from them.
Hmm, hmm.
And I just really liked that freedom. And so I was going to a Catholic college at the time too, but like I was like, if you can make peace with like taking off your top, man, you got a lot of freedom. And I just made peace with it, and I became a stripper, and I just didn't look back. And so that was it. That was it. And then I graduated from college with a degree in chemistry, magna cum laude, and I was
Wow.
thinking about getting a normal job, and I was like, I'm having so much more fun being a stripper. And so I ended up not getting a job, a real job, and I ended up being a stripper for a number of years, and that's what I did. And then eventually, so I got married pretty young then, like shortly after college. And then my husband ended up actually doing quite well. And so I quit. Then I was a stay-at-home mom. So I just went pretty much from being a stripper to a stay-at-home mom. And then when my youngest twins were in like second grade, I went back to school and I got a master's in engineering so I could get like a real job.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like what I've been doing. Yeah.
It always seems to me that women that work in that
Mhm.
trade are
Mhm.
business women, and I mean it's
Yeah.
lucrative. What attracted you to it? Why'd you
Oh,
stay?
it's so well. There's so many reasons. Well, first of all, the way I first ended up there was because I had some friends there, right? So it wasn't quite so scary, right? Girls I already
Mm,
knew, who I looked up to, who I thought were really cool, were already working there, and that's probably how they ended up there too. I don't know. So I didn't come in there cold,
mm,
and then as once that you start working there, you start to make more friends, and now you've got like a whole little social circle. Like these are your
mm,
friends. So my friends now were doing that. It was getting a real job just sounded like such a drag.
mm.
And I also really like the idea that, like the harder the work, you work, the more that you can make. I kind of liked having that
Right.
independence. And you also got to make your own schedule kind of within reason.
Mm,
So I would work like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I just liked it. If I didn't want to go in one night, you could usually call out. You could usually get out of there. But you usually didn't want to because you'd rather just make money. But I just liked it. Everybody told me I was going to regret it, and everybody told me I was going to regret it. And you know what? I'm 54 years old, and I don't regret it. I'm really glad I
hmm.
did that. Yeah,
Sometimes we're told that
yeah,
there's lots of drug abuse and there's
yeah.
abuse by the staff and by the
Mhm.
the the membership. You didn't see much of that?
No, so I did. I certainly did see some drug abuse, but then again, in college, I saw some drug abuse, right? But
Oh,
I certainly did see some drug abuse. I won't disagree with that. Um,
but
but
also alcohol, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah, but I will say though that overwhelmingly, at least with the little group that I kind of ran with, it was a group that was incredibly concerned about their health, right? Their health and their physical fitness.
Mm,
You know, very much, aware of how much sugar they were putting in their
hmm,
body, or, it was even back before processed food was like a big deal, but people being kind of aware of, like how many fruits and vegetables they were getting. And if they were, most of my friends were pretty concerned about good health. And
wow.
if they were going to say, I mean, we were younger, right? We were like in our 20s, so definitely, when you're in your 20s, you do drink, but it was always, you didn't want to get sloppy drunk. And I hardly ever drank at work because, the more that you drink, you're maybe not going to work as hard. You might not make as
Right.
much money.
Right.
Most of my friends didn't drink a lot at work. Sometimes on nights off, if we went out, people would drink, but no more so than like your average. I mean, I had some fun in college, so my friends drank a lot too. But it was within reason. I mean, the people who I was really good friends with were very health conscious, very health conscious. You know, so yeah. And I got to say, regarding as far as management, I had wonderful managers. So most of the managers you have to remember are they're probably dating a stripper, right? And
Mm.
or they might be married to a stripper, and so they don't view you as like
Commodity.
yeah, no, I mean they and like most of the managers, like I was friends with their wives or girlfriends, so most of my managers were just lovely people, actually. I was treated very well, but I guess I've been kind of lucky that way. But I've worked at a number of clubs, and at most every club I've worked at, there was one guy who was kind of a jerk, but my girlfriend had dated him and she dumped him, and I think he just had a bad attitude.
Happens everywhere.
Yeah.
And I've heard you say you have a stance on sex workers should not be illegal.
Yeah, I don't think it should be.
I agree.
Yeah, like so, like all the discussion that's been going on lately with OnlyFans and everything like that, and
Hmm.
even extrapolating further than that, like the book I'm actually writing right now. One of the main characters is going to be a software developer who, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a tech crisis going on right now. So she's going to be a software developer who's working at like a big, like a FANG type of big tech. She's going to be worried that she's going to lose her job, and so she gets a side at night. She's been moonlighting as an OnlyFans creator. They find out at her work, she ends up getting fired, and then she ends up embracing that and runs with that. But it's, you know, and I know that OnlyFans is legal, but you still run up against a lot of stigmatization. And like when I was a stripper, right, going to a Catholic college, I dealt with a fair amount of stigmatization there. You have to, and even when my book sold, the book the book that's out right now, Bodies to Die For, that's my debut. When we were putting together a proposal, when my agent was going to sell it, he was asking me, give him some background on why I wrote it and everything. And one of the things that came up was that when I was in my 20s, I had been in Playboy's Book of Lingerie, right? And so I was just explaining to him like my whole background, in bodies and everything, and why they were so on my radar. And so we'd actually put like all the different stuff, my background, into this proposal, and I think it actually helped sell the book. But
Hmm.
what I didn't realize is that then when the announcement was made in Publishers Weekly, one of the things about me was former Playboy model, and I just about died because you know I hadn't realized that it was going to be there, and I was like, oh my gosh. But then I thought to myself, you know what, if I'm quiet about it, right, and and if anybody can speak about it right now, I mean, I can, right? I've been married for decades. My kids are grown now. I have a solid job. I mean, if anybody can speak about this, I certainly can. And so I think that it's incumbent upon people like me who are no longer raising kids and things like that to say, you know what, being a stripper was not the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was actually a good thing, and
Hmm.
I liked being able to chart my own future. And so I would like to see, and I'll even go further. I actually think, although I've not done this myself, but I think prostitution should be legal. I think if you wanna get paid to have sex with somebody, I think that you should be able to. And sex work is not the same thing as human trafficking. I know they
Right.
often get conflated, but they're
Right.
very, very different things.
Of
It, it,
course.
it's like saying that sex is the same thing as rape. So yeah, I feel very strong. I have a very strong opinion on like people telling others what they can and can't do with their bodies. So yeah,
Two consenting adults
yeah,
decide what they want to do, and
yeah,
if they exchange money, whose business is it?
yeah. I really think that the government needs to get out of everybody's bedrooms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, they could tax it. They can make money on it like they
Yeah.
do marijuana, but
Yeah.
it'll never happen in this country with with
Yeah.
religious.
You
Yeah,
never
but
know, right?
again, I
The
hope so.
tide
Maybe in
might
some,
change.
maybe
Yeah.
it might go state by state,
Yeah.
like they do with, and so it's a very interesting point. I mean, you want to do whatever you want to do with your own body is really, really
Hmm.
up to you.
Yeah.
Um, and as far as OnlyFans, I think it's, the pornography industry is, the people making the money are the distributors,
Hmm.
and now OnlyFans has turned it into the creators. The
Yeah.
creators are the
Hmm.
ones making money. It's
Yeah.
completely switched the paradigm. I think,
Yeah.
and they're forced to make great product, great, otherwise they won't get as many subscribers.
Yep.
So it's all put on there. I think it's a good thing. I think
I do too.
it puts it in the hands of the creators.
Yep.
Now, you made these two characters, right? You made
Hmm.
Ashley and Gemma very, very different. Gemma's
Hmm.
kind of a before and after, and she's got this great husband and what would seem to be the perfect,
Hmm.
life. And you've got Ashley, who's overweight, and she's a software engineer, and she's frustrated, and she
Hmm.
works with this activist group. But I heard you say, Lori, that they didn't start out that way, that they kind of took on their life of their own as you were writing.
Yeah. So when I started writing this, actually Gemma, so there's two main characters in my book, right? There's Gemma and there's Ashley. Gemma was like an auxiliary character. She was going to be somebody much smaller. And I had a different character that was my main character, but she wasn't quite as interesting. She was like a brand new competitor and she was just breaking into it. But Gemma had come on the scene in my book, and she was just so much more interesting that I decided to run with her, right? And the original girl who was her name was Kentucky Crystal. She makes a little cameo appearance, maybe like around like chapter like 50 or something. But yeah, I changed Gemma, but then also as the book went on, the characters became sharper and sharper. I really wanted a good contrast. So Gemma she's a success story. She's somebody who was 100 pounds overweight. She lost a bunch of weight. She became a fitness influencer, a bikini bodybuilder, and now everybody looks up to her on Instagram, right? But now
Hmm.
she needs to sell this image, right? She's projecting an image, and that's how she's making her money, right? She's making her money off of her body. She's commoditized it, and so there's a lot of pressure there. And in her mind, she's very fearful that fat Gemma will come back, right? She's haunted by fat Gemma.
Mm.
And then on the other side, you've got Ashley, who is visibly overweight, and you've got the way that the world treats her, and how diet culture impacts her. And what I was really trying to do with this book, the reason why I originally called it Body Wars, is I was trying to show the war on women's bodies. The wars that we wage on each other and the wars that we wage on ourselves. And
Mm.
so I needed to put two women who were very, very different against each other. And then I also wanted, Gemma to have that internal struggle too. So you could see it from multiple sides. And but as you get to the end of the book, you find out that they're really really not that different. And by the time that even though the book's a thriller, right? So people die, things blow up, so it's,
Yes.
it's a thriller. But you get to the end of it, and you find that there's two main points to my book. One of them is that focusing on shrinking, on getting small, focusing on external, like trying to please somebody else, you'll never make everybody happy. So instead, if you can change your focus from shrinking to getting strong, that's something empowering. You say, I want to walk a mile, I want to do a push up, I want to do a pull up, I want to bench 100 pounds, or whatever it may be. That's as you start to tick off these goals, you start to become mentally strong, and it's a growth mentality rather than a shrinking mentality.
Hmm.
But then the other big take home point is that we as women need to quit tearing each other apart. We need to
Mm.
quit ripping each other down, right? And we can work together to make for a better tomorrow, right? We're so much stronger together. So often we say, well, society this and society that, but who is society, right?
Mm.
We are society. And so I really 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 hope that people who read my book come to the conclusion that we need to be kind to each other. We need to be kind to ourselves and, give each other some grace. Yeah.
What's your process, Lori? Did you storyboard this
No,
before?
I would not recommend my process either, because this is the first book. Actually, it's the second book. I tried writing another book about 10 years ago. I wasn't able to get an agent for that. I was not successful. This book is the first one that will actually be published. So I just pretty much started writing, and I wrote the book. the The good thing is that I'm extremely well read in the thriller genre. So
I
I
see.
really, and because I'm so familiar with because I've read so many thrillers, I kind of naturally hit a lot of these beats. But I didn't realize, if there's any writers listening, okay. But after my agent signed me, he was talking to me. He was saying, well, in the second act, blah, 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 blah. And I said, what are you talking about the second act? And he said, the second act of your story. And I said, well, how many acts are there? He said, there's three. And as soon as I got off the phone with him, I Googled 3-act story structure. And oh my God, there's like an actual structure. And had I had known that, oh, it would have made it so much easier. I wish I would have
Huh.
outlined. So he and I went back. We kind of re-engineered my book into, I had a lot of those beats naturally, but we kind of went back and sort of re-engineered it backwards. But on the second book I wrote, the one I'm writing right now, this one I plotted out more so. But then because I made a big mistake here on the second one. It's and I'm fixing it right now. I wrote the whole book just like I did the first one because I thought I would write the whole book and then I would just give it to my agent. And that's what I did. And he took a look at it and he said, it's too different from your first book. Even though
Hmm.
it's a thriller, it'll be easier to sell if it can sit on the shelf next to the other one. They should be a little more similar. And
Mm.
so I've had to go back. I'm in rewrites right now with him. I've had to go back and make the book more like my similar nature to my other one. But this will be the last time. If I write a third book, my plan now, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to give my agent like an outline, or I'm going to tell him what I think I want to do, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll write like 20, 30, 40 pages, give it to him, and then I'll write the rest of the book. So I think this is the last time it's going to take me this long. But yeah, that was my process. Yeah.
But Lori, the process, it just intrigues me so much. So you
Yeah.
say that the one character wasn't going to be major, but as you kept writing,
Yeah.
they became. Just explain that to me. I mean, it
I
just
don't know.
are they taking over?
Yes. And not only that, but you'll find, I don't know if you had a chance to read the book, but if you read the
Yeah.
book, you will find out. So the book is split into different parts of a bodybuilding show. There's 2 months out, then we go like week by week by week, and then we get to peak week. That's a new section. And so in the first section, and then there's show day, and then there's show time, then there's post show. But anyway, in the first part, 8 weeks all the way up to peak week, we go back and forth between Ashley Gemma, Ashley Gemma, Ashley Gemma. It's all first person point of view.
Right.
And as we're going along, it it all of a sudden occurred to me, that they're living this thing out online, right? This whole thing is starting to spiral online. So you know what? There's other people watching, right? There's people watching, and so the last chapter, right before you go into peak week, is a third person point of view, and it's a guy, and he comments. It's his point of it's third person point of view. His name is Andrew, and it's a very creepy feel to go from all of a sudden all this first person to all of a sudden
Mm.
third person. And I did that intentionally to show that it's not, when you're living your life online, other people are watching. And then from there, as you go into peak week, then we get a few other characters also in third person point of view. And so now it starts to become more clear that that there's all these other points of view, and all these other different people have insight and different things going on. But that happened kind of by accident.
Hmm.
It just hit me. And I think it was I actually really like it. It's a real creepy feel right when you get there, because you're like, wait a minute, who's this
Mm.
guy? What's going on? Yeah, it just kind of evolves. It just evolves as you write. Your characters kind of tell you who they want to be. you think you know, but it turns out that they tell you who they want to be. Yeah.
Hmm. And when you're writing, Lori,
Mhm.
where do you think about the reader? Do you think about the reader going through this?
Not on the first pass. So, not really. I think about how to tell the best story, or the story that I
Mm.
want to communicate. But then when I after you write a draft, you kind of got to go back and you gotta straighten it up, because there'll be parts that are too long, parts that are too short. And then I'm looking at it more from a reader's point of view, like would they even know what I'm talking about here? Or might they want, because these characters have lived in your head, um, maybe there are certain things that I took for granted that now that I'm looking at it, as a reader might look at it, I might realize, this person, reader might not have any idea what this even means, so you might need to have a little bit of an explanation there. Um, yeah, so when I write it the first time, I kind of just write like the story that I want to tell. The story that I want to tell. I just kind of, because I almost want to keep that real creative hat on. I don't want to look at it critically the first time.
Mm.
I just want to let it. I just want to let it flow, because it's easy to cut, it's easy to add, but just get it down, and just I think the first time you just let it fly, right? And then afterwards you go back. Yeah. Yeah.
But that editing process is so
Yeah.
painful, isn't it?
It is. But I also, what I didn't do on that first book that never sold, that I did on the second book that think helped it sell, in case people who are listening are also potential writers. This time, after I finished my draft, I set it aside for a few weeks, but then I reworked it as hard, as good as I possibly could. But once I thought it was as tight as I could possibly make it, I went and I got 3 beta readers. So beta readers are people who will read your manuscript and give you honest feedback. And I didn't think I had any friends that would give it to me straight,
Mm.
who were also big thriller readers. So I hired 3 different beta readers off of Goodreads. And now they also have free beta readers. Like if you want to swap your manuscript with somebody else who writes a manuscript, you guys can swap, and you can do it for free. But I didn't have the time, because I have a day job and everything. So I just decided, I'm just going to pay $100 a beta reader pretty much, and have them read it and give me feedback. And it was one of the best things I did, because with 3, like if anybody tells you something and it resonates, you'll go ahead and you'll change it. If it doesn't resonate, maybe you won't. But if 2 people tell you something and it doesn't
Mm.
resonate, you might want to really, really, really consider it. And if 3 people tell you something and it doesn't
Mm.
resonate, you better just change it anyway. And so that was really helpful. That because like there were things that I thought were clear, that weren't clear, or there were parts that people wanted additional information about. There were other parts that people thought were they were too much. I was getting like way too into the weeds of bodybuilding. Like they didn't need all that, right? And so that was really helpful to me. I would highly recommend getting a few beta readers. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is the publishing industry fair to authors?
It's hard to know what. So it's such a shame. It's a business, right? It's such a bummer. It's a business. At the end of the day, it's a business. There's a lot of luck involved. You have to make. So if you don't put together a good manuscript, you're not going to get anywhere or anyway. But there is. It's not completely fair in the sense that and again, I think if you write a really good manuscript and if you try really hard, I think you can totally do it, right?
Mm.
But it's you have to be able to, and so maybe this is fair in the sense that you have to be able to take rejection. You have to be able to find somebody. You have to find an agent who is willing to take you on, because good agents don't get paid unless your manuscript sells. And so agents are very hesitant to sign a new author, because it's harder to sell a debut often than it is to sell somebody who's got a few books under their belt. So they're taking a big gamble on you. So if they're going to take a gamble on you, it the book has to resonate with them.
Hmm.
And if you look at publishing today, there's way more women in publishing than there are guys. But there are more women readers right now than there are men, or at least in the psychological thriller point genre. Um, they also the agents tend to be heavily localized in, say, like New York or in LA. Um, and there's, I don't want to say they tend to like a lot of the same things. It's really hard to
Hmm.
it's very hard to find, to kind of break in.
Hmm.
Like I'm fortunate that I was able to, that I was able to afford to have a few beta readers. Not everybody can do that. I know some people, I didn't do this, but some people will actually pay for a developmental edit. I know several
Hmm.
people have paid for a developmental edit before they've queried. Developmental edit might cost you $1,000 or $2,000. I didn't do that. I know somebody who queried her book who didn't do any of that. She didn't even pay for beta readers. She just did exchanges. She didn't pay a thing. She just
Wow.
did it all on her own. She's pretty broke, and she was able to do it. She's being published in September. Um, but you have to just, I just don't know if I would say, I guess it's the same for almost, it helps also if you know somebody. And often, how you can meet people. Well, so you can meet people by going to conferences, but things are a little bit more free now in the sense that you can meet people on Instagram. One of the people who, actually two, three, actually three people who provided blurbs for my book, I actually met them through Instagram. I had followed these different authors and I
Hmm.
really liked their books, and it was, I genuinely liked their books. Like, I was not like thinking like a year and a half ago, I'm gonna suck up to this person so I can ask them a year and a half from now if they're gonna write me a blurb. But there's some authors who, if you're an aspiring author, I would encourage you to follow authors who you really like their work.
Hmm.
And that, that's what I did. I commented on some of their work. I had commented, I DM'd a couple of them and said, like, oh my gosh, I just love this. This is absolutely amazing. And I wasn't even looking for anything. And then like a year or two later, when my book needed a few blurbs, I actually reached out to two of them and I asked. The third one pretty much just offered out of the blue to blurb my book, because she knew me through Instagram, which is, so that didn't cost me a dime,
Hmm.
you know. So I don't know. I guess I don't know if it's fair or not. I guess everybody else has to get through the same similar hoops. If your book isn't good, if your book isn't good, there's just nobody who's going to rep you, because, and I take it back, unless you are a nonfiction author. If you're a nonfiction author and you are, you're widely known for, you've got a million Instagram followers, or you're at the top of your field and God knows what. For nonfiction, you'll get signed, right? Because
Hmm.
in the very least, they can hire a ghostwriter and have them help you out and have them clean it up, because your name will still be on it, but
Hmm.
you've got that clout, right? You can speak to whatever it is. But for fiction, you better have a good book, or it's just probably not going to work. Yeah.
Laura, you've got a great story where you had this agent that you wanted to get in touch with, and
Hmm.
you didn't end up going, but he had you change the tone, and you really stuck with it.
Yeah. And so this is an example of just picking yourself up again and again and again. So originally, when I had queried, I was only querying women because I
Hmm.
thought only a woman's going to be interested in this story. There aren't any guys who are going to be interested. But there was one agent, Shane Salerno. He's not my agent, but who I really, really, really admired this guy. And I thought, well, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And so I I queried him on a Saturday night at like 10 o'clock at night because I have no life. And I woke up at 2 in the morning. And if you're ever querying a book, like, what do? You check your email on your phone. And I checked my email on my phone at 2 a.m. And holy smokes, he responded and he said, this is actually pretty good. He goes, I'm not taking new clients, but I'm CCing a younger agent who I think would potentially be a good fit. And I was just so elated. I couldn't even believe it. And that was it. But then like an hour later, he said, oh, and one more thing. He sent one more email, one more thing. If you could make the tones subversive, I think you might have something here. And so I wrote the
Subversive.
subversive. And so I wrote the word subversive on a post-it note and I stuck it on my bathroom vanity for like, like a couple of years. It just stayed there. And I kind of used it as a North Star. And that younger agent that he recommended did become my agent. And that's how I got my agent. But if you end up querying a book, you will get rejected over and over and over again. Or sometimes you won't even get rejected. People just won't respond. And you just have to keep slogging away, it's really hard.
Mm.
But yeah.
How important is an agent in the publishing industry?
So if you want to get traditionally published, you're going to need an agent. I think there might be a few different romance imprints where maybe you don't need to. I don't know, but if you want to get traditionally published, there are some smaller independent presses that maybe won't necessarily require an agent, but any of the bigger ones will require an agent. But there are people who are choosing not to be traditionally published and they're independently publishing and they're doing very, very well on
Hmm.
all on their own. And then they've got publishing imprints that are then coming to them. Colleen Hoover, who had all sorts of books, she probably still does, on the New York Times bestseller list, USA Today, but I'm just on everybody's bestseller list. Colleen Hoover was originally self-published because she was not able to get an agent, and so she
Hmm.
just published on her own. Her books just did so well that eventually agents came to her, and now I think she's with Grand Central or something. But and or like Geneva Rose, she did get traditionally published, but her first book got The Perfect Marriage was published by a very, very tiny little imprint that I don't think she needed an agent for. But she was like a TikTok guru. She just blew it up on, so did Colleen Hoover. But Geneva
Hmm.
Rose just blew it up on TikTok and did so well there. She sold so many books that she was able to, for her next book, get an agent and get traditionally published. And so you're seeing, or like Frida, oh God, what's Frida's last name? Mc something. Frida, I forget her last name. Frida McFadden. Frida McFadden. She's got a lot of thrillers right now. She was independently, or she was just indie published for the longest time. She recently had Bookouture, which is a smaller, they're just electronic, but she's recently signed with them to do some of her books, but she did a lot of marketing on her own. So you don't you don't need to be traditionally published to make it in this business. You absolutely don't have to. And I suspect over the next 10 years or so, I think there's going to be I think there's too many gatekeepers in traditional publishing, and people are getting tired of waiting for the gatekeepers. And so they're going
Hmm.
around on their own and they're just doing it themselves. And we're seeing that people are having success doing it. So I'm not sure how publishing is going to be changing, but it's a lot of changes going on right now. But if you want to be traditionally published at this point in time, you need an agent. Yeah. But you can certainly make money in this business. You can certainly succeed without an agent, without an imprint. Yeah, all on your own.
It's
But
fascinating, the
yeah,
world.
yeah,
It's because it's come upon some pretty hard times,
yeah,
books, and there's audio books. I
yeah,
heard you talk about that as well. I know.
yeah,
I mean, there's 4 million podcasts, and
yeah,
I don't know if that's crowding the space or not, or making.
yeah.
It's so hard to say,
It
uh,
is.
but just nothing kind of replaces, just reading, great fiction from a great author.
Yeah,
Uh, so Laura, I'm in the tech. I know you're in the tech industry now,
yeah.
and I started my tech business in the '90s. We're about the
Okay,
same age,
okay.
and was working way too hard.
Yeah,
14, 16-hour days. So
yep,
happens when you start a business. You're no
yep,
stranger to this.
yeah.
So I wasn't, you talked about your colleagues there worrying about how many fruits and vegetables and, their
Hmm.
health. And
Hmm.
I was neglecting that. I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And before you know it, I got myself to 340 pounds.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Uh-huh.
doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So I spent
Yeah.
the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds, kept it
Wow.
off, because many
Uh-huh.
people kind of look at it as a finishing line. And people
Yeah.
always want a quick answer, Lori. How'd
Yep.
you do it? What's your secret?
Oh, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no secret, Lori. Discipline.
Yeah. Yep.
That's how I
Yep.
did it. I
Yep.
got focus,
Yep.
routine, I
Yep.
got some order, willpower, etc.,
Yep.
all
Yep.
under what I say the discipline umbrella. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life,
Oh,
Lori
very
Graham.
much so, right? And really quick, I just want to touch on what you're saying. So, all these articles so previously I used to write articles for fitness magazines before I wrote this book,
Mm,
but I actually would not write an article on like how to I just didn't want to write an article on how to lose weight.
yeah.
Because I always said, I can tell you how to lose weight in like how to cut fat in like I could do it in like 3 paragraphs, right? There's not a lot to it, right? And so that it just doesn't warrant maybe it warrants one article, but one article ever, and that's it. There is no magic, right? There's no magic. There's no. I mean, the other thing is everybody knows. We all know what we have to do, but we just don't.
Yes.
But we just don't want to. We keep hoping that there's some magic pill, there's some magic
Yeah.
something or other, but no.
Or we get our
So
jaw wired.
yeah, and so to your point, like what I do, so I'm extremely disciplined, right? So I get up. I always exercise first thing in the morning, right? I just knock it out. I do it first thing. It sets me up mentally for a good day. Then on Monday through Friday I have a day job. I'm a software quality engineer. I come home. I need about an hour off to like either like garden or like eat dinner with my family, like look at cats of Instagram. I just need to do like something not critical thinking related. And then I usually by like 6 o'clock, from 6 to 8 at night, I do stuff related to my book. So if I'm editing, I will work on editing. If I'm drafting, I'll work on drafting. If my manuscript is with my agent, I'll work on stuff related to my book, that I need to do anyway. I try to put in 2 hours a day, Monday through Saturday, because on Saturday I teach some yoga classes and I play tennis. So I still only do 2 hours on Saturday. And then Sunday I have a long writing day where I write as long as I need to get everything done. And I do this pretty much no matter what. When I was writing my first book, the one that's debuted now, if I would miss an evening of writing because of something or other, I would then get up the next day at 4 a.m. and I would
Wow.
write before work, right? And then I would then exercise if I needed to on my lunch break, or potentially I might just skip the working out that one day. But I mean, I didn't go more than like a day without missing it. Even now, I stick to it. Even if even if like I have something in the evening, I'll usually maybe I can get in like 30 or 40 minutes before I have to. And every now and then, I've got something in the evening where I just can't. And so like that day will be an exception, but there's a reason why it's an exception. It's not because I didn't feel like it, right? It's
Hmm.
because, I don't know, there's something that I have to do. But yeah, you just I watch very little TV. I put these big pieces in my life and I just make everything else fit around it like sand. Yeah.
Routine.
Yep. Yep, yep, very much, very much. I
And
mean, yeah,
were you always that way? Even when you were
pretty
dancing as a
much.
kid? Yeah.
So I'm kind of a driven person. So even when I was a dancer, after college, I still kind of had a routine, right? I like worked on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and I went to the gym like every day during the day. But it was a lot. I didn't have a whole lot else hanging over me at that time. I wish I would have started writing then. I don't know why I didn't think of it then. But no, I pretty much do what I say I'm gonna. If I decide I'm gonna do something, I just do it, right? I
Mm,
just I just do it. You know,
willpower.
I don't know. I mean, if you're not gonna do it, who is, right?
Right.
So yeah.
What motivates you, Lori Brand?
Uh, so, ah, so as far as we know, and it might be wrong, but as far as we know, we only get one life, right?
Hmm.
And I want to live. I like want to be of service. I want to live a good life. I want to do something that I believe in, something that I'm proud of. I don't want to squander this
Hmm.
life that I was given, you know? I also want to feel good in my body. I want to feel powerful. I want to feel strong. So wanting to feel good, powerful, and strong, that's the exercise. But then that helps me stay mentally strong. At my job, my day job, I like to do a good job just for the people that I work with. I'm a software quality engineer for medical devices, so and non-medical devices. So if you do a shoddy job, you could end up impacting
Mm.
patients, or patient safety.
Mm.
Um, at night, when I write, I kind of have like something that I want to say. And, if you want to get a message out into the world, you're going to have to find a way to do it. And the medium that I'm using right now is books, right?
Hmm.
Books and writing. And so, I'd rather put in the time on that than I guess just squander my life away.
Hmm.
I do love to read though. I mean, I read a ton, but when I read, I think I'm also getting ideas and everything. But I don't know, just the idea that life is limited, right? Um
Impact.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. So, given that motivation, Lori, how do you measure success?
So so right now the most recent one was, I just really wanted to get that book launched. Right now the book
Yeah.
is out there. um I'm kind of keeping a little bit of an eye on. I had asked my acquiring editor the other day, like what the sales numbers were like, just because I've never done this before, and I just wanted an idea. So I'm trying to, keep visibility up for my book. I'm hoping that the sales numbers will do okay. But then also I want to get the second book that I'm working on. I want to sell that book, and I'm hoping that more people will read it, will hear about it, will think about. What I really want is, I really want people to hear what I'm saying. I've gone on Goodreads and I've seen like some of the reviews that my book Bodies to Die For has had, and it's been really encouraging. I know everybody says awful things about Goodreads, but to see like to read reviews by people who have read your book and like your book has really resonated with them, like to me, like that's success, right? If I can get in somebody's head and make them decide that they want to get strong, that they want to quit focusing on shrinking and they want to focus on getting strong. I
Hmm.
mean, like to me, that's just like absolutely huge. I mean, and right now I think I've got, I don't know, like 150 or something reviews on Goodreads. So I, so I know for sure that at least 150 people have read that book, right? I
Mm.
know more than that based on the numbers that my editor told me, but you never know if the people actually read the book that's out
Right.
there, right? But I know for sure that 150 people read it and they heard me, and so to me, I guess that's huge. That's really exciting. I mean, if you get 100, think about it, 150 people who are going to be kinder to each other,
Mm.
and kinder to each other, kinder to themselves. And so maybe by them being kinder to each other, maybe it makes somebody else be kinder. You know what I mean? I mean, the whole thing can end up snowballing, right? Like if you're around kind people, you tend to be a little more kind yourself, you know?
I heard a statistic. I forget who the publisher said. Like, if somebody buys a book, there's about 30% chance.
Uh huh.
No, if you give somebody a book,
Uh
there's
huh.
about 30% chance they read it. But if they buy it,
Mm-hmm.
it's goes up to like 70 to
Really? I
80%.
believe
Yeah.
that. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if they get it for free? Yeah, I got it for free. And,
Right.
but if they actually invest in it,
Yep.
okay, this will be worth my time.
Yeah.
And is there an audio version? Actually, there is an audio
Yeah. There
version.
is. Yep. There's an audio version.
But you didn't do that. So for fiction, yeah,
No.
for fiction, you
No.
need real actors.
Yeah, they're very good
They're
too.
great. Yeah.
They're phenomenal. My agent
Yeah.
and I were sent voices to like review. We got to pick. They
Hmm.
gave us a few to pick from, and I never really listened to audiobooks, and then I heard these samples, and I was like, oh my gosh,
That's great. It's
they're so
great.
good at
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I listen to all books now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just the way I do it. Lori, I was so excited when we set
Yeah.
this up. It's a great book. Anybody
Yeah.
listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, so my website is Lori Brand Writes. Brand is Brand. Lori is Lori. So Lori Brand Writes. You can find me on Instagram at Lori Brand Writes and Lifts because I like to lift a lot of weights. And those are probably the two best ways to find me. Yeah.
And of course, Bodies to Die For is the latest book. It's
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon. We'll make sure I put a link there, and
Mm-hmm.
also wherever you can get books. Lori,
Mm-hmm.
so cool. Thank you. Keep up the great work. You're a
Thank
great
you.
author. I love your style. I love the
Okay.
topic. I look forward to seeing what comes out next. If I'm ever in the greater Illinois area, perhaps
Yes.
we get a cup of tea.
Please. I would love to. I would love to, love to. Anywhere in the Chicagoland area, I'll come to you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Lori, you be well. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.